Welcome, all of you wine and true crime lovers. I'm Brandy.
And I'm Chris.
And this is Texas Wine and True Crime. Thank you being here, friends, for episode number 50, Obsession and Murder. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Brandy.
Babe, today is a special day.
I know, it's number 50.
Number 50. We have decided we are now going to end our seasons.
Yes, we have decided that.
We have decided that, and we're just going to continue with numbers.
Continue with numbers, yes.
Yeah. So, guys, we're now going to number them. So this is number 50.
Yes, we've accumulated many numbers leading up to this, and now we are at 50.
We are. And I think we'll get like a special email from Buzzsprout once this goes out. Because I think they mark like your 50, 75, 100, I think. I don't know.
I get lots of special emails from Buzzsprout.
Oh, you do? Okay, well, maybe this might be one of them. So we are here for our 50th episode. So thank you, everyone out there, for listening and just hanging with us. Chris, we just got back from Lubbock.
We did.
English Newsome Cellars live event.
Very fun event.
It was so fun. We got really great feedback. We did an interview with Steve Newsome, grape grower and owner at English Newsome.
Yes, he did fantastic. He was a great interviewee, and you were a great interviewer.
Oh, thank you. You did kind of give me some props after that.
And I said like 2 words.
You did not. You said so much more than that. Whatever. It was good. Everything was good. Thank you, English Newsome Cellars, for having us out. Okay, so we'll be putting out a bonus episode on Halloween to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, Chris, of Texas Wine and True Crime.
It will be number 51 for those keeping up with the numbers. And yes, it is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
1-year anniversary.
1 year, and the very next day, Monday after Halloween, we will be having our own anniversary, celebrating 13 years of marriage.
This is true. Yes.
So true. We've been together, though, longer than that.
A little longer.
So, let's see.
Like 17 years.
Oh, we said it at the same time.
Wow. That's what happens after 17 years. You start finishing and starting and
we're going out. Sentences. We're like throwing the celebration a big bang. So we're about to have some fun.
We hope it's a big bang. That's what you do on anniversary.
It's going to be a wild time. So our anniversaries are coming up. So looking forward to sharing some fun stuff with you guys. And a huge shout out to all of you that support the show each and every week. We just appreciate it so much. If you want to help keep the wine, food, and the stories flowing, just go to our website, TexasWineandTrueCrime.com. Click on that Ko-fi link and you can contribute right there. Big thanks, babe, this week to Hill Country Wineworks for sending us the wine for today's episode.
Lots of delicious wine that they sent.
Man, it's good stuff. And Chris, since it is October and October is Texas Wine Month.
Well, you know what? Sorry to interrupt, but you did forget to mention we'll be making announcements for other ways for people to support the show.
We will.
On the 51st episode.
There's going to be a lot on the 51st episode. We're going to have giveaways. We're doing a couple giveaways.
Special guests.
Maybe. You can tell me who that is. I don't know who that is.
We'll figure somebody out. We'll
who wants to be a special guest? And we have some big stuff coming up in year 2 that we're going to tell people about. And ways
I'm going to shoot for
it.
Samuel L. Jackson for our special guest. I don't know if he'll respond, but we'll see. I'll tag him or do whatever the kids are doing.
Okay, I just want Joe Kenda. Can I have Joe Kenda?
We can have whoever we
Joe
actually
Kenda,
manage to drag on the show, I guess.
You are my true crime hero. Okay, so guys, if you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple. Maybe you've liked us in the first year. Maybe say some nice words. It only helps us. But babe, this week we are sipping on a 2019 Dolcetto by Hill Country Wineworks. Chris will tell us all about this wine during the wine recess. His name is also Chris. I was getting that confused when I was on the phone with him.
I can tell you a little bit about it, but it's not a lot.
Chris is awesome. So he's going to tell us all about this amazing wine, owner of Hill Country Wineworks. All right, babe, are you ready to get into this week's case, Obsession and Murder?
Absolutely. Let's get started.
All right, friends, let's sip some wine and talk some crime. So, this week we are discussing the case of Dr. Joseph Sonnier out of Lubbock, Texas. As always, we are going to give you a few facts about the city that our crime takes place in. So, here we go. Number one, babe, remember the email we got the other day? Lubbock is called the Hub City by locals.
I totally remember that email.
Remember that?
Yes.
And we were like, what is Hub City?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's what Lubbock is called by locals. They call it Hub City. But here's why. Some claim that Lubbock is called the Hub City because it lies at the center of 5 major highways, which makes it appear like the hub of a wheel on a map or a bird's eye view. However, the city's website claims that Lubbock is called the Hub City because it is the healthcare, educational, and economic hub for the surrounding counties of the region. So if you're in Lubbock, which one is it? Email us, text us, however you get a hold of us. Let us know. Babe.
Pretty good nickname. I mean, like Dallas is D-Town.
Yeah. I didn't know this
Houston's
about Hub
H-Town.
City, though. Did you?
Fort Worth is Funky Town. So, yeah.
It's
we got
Funky Town.
Hub Town or Hub City. Yes.
All right. So why do you guys call it Hub City? Let us know. Number 2, there is more to Texas Tech than just being Lubbock's local university. It is a water park. It's a museum hub and an all-around city community center.
Texas Tech has a water park.
It just built a new aquatic center, but not only can the students and people a part of the swim team participate, but people in the community can come and swim there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Our kid will look to go to college there.
Yeah, community
right.
center.
Just because of the water park alone.
Right? And then they allow people to come in. It's a community center, and they want people in the community to participate and be a part of tech. So it's more of a everyone community type thing than just a university, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. Number 3, babe, this one's for you. Buddy Holly. The famous 50s rock and roll sensation. He is from Lubbock.
He is.
Lubbock native. And they go pretty far to celebrate Buddy Holly. They have a festival every year that they call the Bud Fest to celebrate his birthday. They also have a statue of Buddy Holly. You can visit the Buddy Holly Center. It's a museum with extensive collection of all of his artifacts. He has his guitars there, some of his clothes there. So they pay homage to this guy.
He's pretty big.
Very big. And people of Lubbock love him.
One of Gary Busey's finest roles in cinema was playing Buddy Holly in the Buddy Holly story.
Oh, I do remember that movie. Yeah, he did pretty good. But people should go see that if they haven't. We should watch it again.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that. I like it.
And Cotton is King in Lubbock. You forgot the 4th thing.
Cotton is King. I know. I should have. I know. I was going to bring that up. But Cotton is King, when we had our beautiful drive on the way down there, it was so peaceful. We got to see tons and tons of cotton.
Even picked a little.
But not off the actual cotton
Not
bush.
off the cotton plant.
The bush? Plant?
Plant. Right,
Cotton plant.
Not tree. It's too short.
Not a tree. Bush. A little cute little. It had fallen off. We just picked it up on the side of the road. Chris said, "Get out. Go get that."
Yep. He's going to clean my ear.
In 2012, 57-year-old Dr. Joseph Sonnier of Lubbock, Texas, was a pathologist, was found murdered in his home. He had been shot multiple times and stabbed. Chris, who killed Dr. Joseph Sonnier?
You're going to tell us.
Okay, so we were just in Lubbock, and we did have the live show. I had multiple requests about actually doing this case, but like you and I talk about, we put ourselves in the audience of our shows and think what is right to talk about and what is not. We are victim advocates first, and I felt like because of the community in Lubbock and because of how well-known this guy actually was, there had to be some sort of 6 degrees of separation possibly in the audience, so I didn't want to talk about this case directly. We talked about the Kendra Hatcher case, which I related to Dr. Joseph Sonnier's case because it also is a stalking case by someone Dr. Joseph Sonnier did not know. And we'll talk about this later, but just how we feel about stalking in general and how he was a male, even though people think female and male is the stalker. This is males stalking males because of an ex-girlfriend. So we'll talk about that later. But so Dr. Joseph Sonnier was a well-respected doctor in the Lubbock area. He was a successful pathologist, lots of friends. He had grown kiddos. And at the time of this crime, he, according to his grown boys and his friends and family, he was really living his best life. He was a wine collector and he made perfume. So I'm thinking as a single guy, like you make perfume that might attract women. So he dated a lot in the Lubbock area. He had several girlfriends.
So this whole time I could have been making perfume to attract women.
Mean, yeah, he made his own perfume, which is kind of a sexy thing for a man to do. He's a doctor.
As long as it smells good, yes.
As long as it smells good, yes. But he wasn't always single. At the age of 19, he actually married his high school sweetheart, Becky Gallegos. So they were married, had 2 boys, but after 27 years of marriage, sadly, they divorced. She actually ended up leaving him for another guy. And
did that guy make perfume?
No, he did not. He didn't. I don't know what that guy did, but in July of 2010, she was actually murdered by him. So he kills her and then kills himself. So what makes this story just extra tough and extra hard was Joseph Sonnier was killed almost at the 2-year anniversary that his ex-wife was killed. So his boys, when they got that phone call about their dad, they thought it had something to do with their mom, who they knew who the killer was, and he took his own life. He committed suicide. So just a hard time, a bad time. But you know what? When their mom was killed, the dad stood up, got the boys through it, and really just tried to move forward with his life, move forward, with the boys. So Sonnier started to get out more, right, after the divorce. And then he really started to date. He was dating lots of women around Lubbock. His boys said they met a lot of them and they really liked most of them. But again, he was very wealthy. He was a great doctor, a well-known citizen of Lubbock, got along with all kinds of people. So when he comes up murdered, that is unusual. Not someone they thought would have been killed. But after he's out and about, he ends up picking up a hobby, and that is ballroom dancing. So he picks up ballroom dancing, and he meets a woman by the name of Rochelle Shatina. So she's tall, blonde, beautiful. They're having fun. They seem really great together. And even his boys really, really like her. They even said their dad brought her on a vacation to meet the grandkids, like their kids. And they thought that was pretty serious. So they said, my dad never really did that. And I could tell he really enjoyed her. And we really, really liked her. So everything's going well. And then until one day, before Sonnier comes home from work, the perpetrator breaks into the backyard of Dr. Joseph Sonnier's house. He breaks in the backyard and he's carrying a gun and a knife. Sonnier comes home from work and he's hanging out in the living room, making a drink, probably just relaxing, when suddenly out of nowhere, a shot comes through the window from the backyard. The perp comes through the window and unloads the gun into Sonnier. So, Chris, the doctor is attempting to get out of the living room. Somehow he's able to stand up and walk. There were several shots shot at him. He ends up making it. Now, just so everyone knows, when I say the perp comes through the window, these windows are floor to ceiling that line the entire living room to the backyard. So you can see the entire backyard from these windows. So they line from floor to ceiling, and the perp comes through. He follows Sonnier into the garage and then ends up stabbing him 11 times. and leaving him on the garage floor. I mean, I'm just thinking, can you imagine just walking in?
So he wasn't a very good shot, it sounds like.
So yeah, yes and no. I think
How many times was he shot?
He was hit a few times. He was hit a few times, but I don't think the garage door to the end where you would go on the inside was far from where he was standing. They know the crime took place right at that dinner table, or basically where the living room is. There was a dining area. He comes through the window. There's chairs knocked over. There's bullet casings all around. There was blood in it. You could see the blood trace from the living room all the way to the garage door. So, landscapers show up the next day. So you have to think, this is like early evening the night before he comes home from work. Landscapers show up the next day to do some work on Dr. Joseph Sonnier's house. And they notice his car is there, and they also notice a broken window. And then they realize some people at work that he hasn't showed up to the office, which is very unusual, and he would call if he was going to be late. So they started to get some concerned. A couple people from work drove over there, and the landscapers were actually entering the home at this time, and that's when they walked into the garage, and they find his body right there on the floor. Police show up to the house and immediately rule out robbery. He had an extensive wine collection, like I mentioned. Computers in the house. He had expensive jewelry, expensive artwork, all kinds of valuables, and nothing was taken from the home. So they didn't think it was a robbery. And this was a multi-million-dollar house. So nothing was taken. They also find an empty Gatorade bottle, which they determine was a makeshift silencer. I had never heard of a Gatorade bottle being used before that.
Nor have I.
So that was found on the ground right outside of the window, or inside where the window is broken. Shell casings, broken glass, broken window, all of that is around, so they know exactly where the crime takes place. So who wanted this well-respected resident of Lubbock dead? Okay, so after Sonnier was murdered, his current girlfriend, Rochelle, was questioned by police. So she has an alibi, which they did check out, and she was cleared. But she did tell police that there were a few suspicious things going on that she felt now might explain some things. She tells police at the time that she felt someone was following her. She also told police that she and Joseph would receive strange text messages from some of his past girlfriends, love letters accusing one or the other of cheating. So they would both get these letters, both get these text messages. They thought it was very strange. And they're one night, Chris, they're sitting in the backyard, and they see what they think is like a camera flash. So they're sitting in the backyard, and they see all the trees. He has trees that line up his backyard, and they see this flash. And they joke with each other like, "Did you see that? Does that look like a camera?" That will come up later. But that they see that. And then they're talking to her about, who was Joseph dating before you? What were these women's names? Tell us about them. But then they realize maybe she has something valuable to offer in her past. So who were you dating, or who have you dated in the last couple years? Anyone that would be on the radar? And she throws out the name of her ex-boyfriend, Dr. Thomas Michael Dixon. So police decide to pay the plastic surgeon a visit in Amarillo, and they secretly record this conversation. So she gives up the name. They decide they're going to go to Amarillo and talk to this guy. And that is exactly what they do. Hi, Butter. We're recording. Hush,
she wanted to be
hush.
on the 50th episode.
On the 50th episode. She wanted to make her presence known. Yes, Butter, we know you're there. Okay, so they go and visit him, and just within the first few minutes, they know he is lying, because he says on the tape he doesn't know anything about Joseph Sonnier. He doesn't know who he is, but he loves and cares about Rochelle very much. But Rochelle had told the police, Chris, that Dixon wanted her back, and he knew that she was, quote, in love with her dance partner. That being Joseph Sonnier. Okay, so let me explain the getaway they were planning. So,
maybe we should address Butter.
Butter. Okay, well, Butter has now been addressed. So let's get back to it. Okay, so let me talk about the getaway that Dixon and Rochelle had talked about. So even though she was with Dr. Joseph Sonnier, she still kept in contact with her ex. This is the way that, just from my research, what I've seen, what I've read, this is my take on it. My take is that she was still talking to him. We know that he knew who he was. We know that he knew Rochelle was dating him. But then they plan like this getaway. He asks her to go away with him and that they're just going to have a nice weekend. And she agrees to it. But then the next day she calls him and she says, well, you know what? I'm not going with you because I'm in love with my dance partner. And that was Joseph Sonnier. So even that, like, I know that she didn't do anything to Joseph. This is Dixon and what he ends up doing. But was she feeding the fire a little bit?
Possibly so.
Was she, because some people claim that she wanted to irritate Dixon, that she did it on purpose, like agreed to go with him and then would call the next day and say, I'm not going because I'm in love with him. Basically both sets of sons from Dixon and Sonnier said that she really wanted to push the marriage thing. And that, we'll talk about later, but Dixon ended up actually leaving his wife, supposedly, for Rochelle.
Well, she must like doctors, it sounds like.
Yes. So she basically, Dixon had told police that she left. They broke up because he didn't buy her a ring and he bought her a tea of the month club instead. And she didn't drink tea. And so she claimed he was not involved in like what she really liked and what she enjoyed in life. He thought it would be funny.
She didn't like the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah. She said tea is great, but I don't necessarily drink it. So he didn't really know what I enjoyed in life.
The month club, I guess.
No. Wine of the month would have been better. Much better.
Wine of the month would have been much better. Yes.
Couldn't have gone wrong with that. So, but
wine of the week actually is much. That's like
so
the best.
Good, right? Yeah. Okay, so he doesn't buy her a ring, and so that supposedly is when the relationship ends. Okay, so then we see something
Beyonce
similar.
said, got to put a ring on it, right?
Got to put a ring on it. But here's the thing: when Dr. Joseph Sonnier and her started dating, his sons kind of claimed after they came, they were going on a lot of vacations and doing a lot of things with each other. Well, his sons sort of claimed that she wanted the same thing from him, sort of pressuring the engagement thing and the wedding thing, and they said their dad would have never married again. Like, they were confident marriage was not going to be on the table for his anytime in his future. So, you have this, is he like committed? Is she thinking he's not committed? Is she just sort of weighing her options? Like, I kind of gather that was possibly going on just from her remarks and her thoughts about it. But again, why do you agree to go with your ex somewhere and then tell him the next day you're in love with your dance partner?
She was having her cake and eating it too.
Yeah, it's pretty. So, anyways, that's left for our own assumptions. So, okay, so a tip comes into the Lubbock Police Department by a gentleman by the name of Paul Reynolds. So, Chris, we always say it's better to report something and be wrong than to not report it and be right. And this is exactly what Paul Reynolds will do. He tells Lubbock PD, I think I might know who killed the doctor in Lubbock. He gives the name David Shepard. Okay, so Paul Reynolds tells the police that he currently is crashing at Dave Shepard's home, and Shepard is saying some crazy things to him. He's saying that he killed a man, more specifically, killed a man in Lubbock, that he shot him. So he became so concerned about all these weird things that this guy that he knew from high school who let him just crash on his couch for a little while. He was so convinced by it, he Googled it and then saw an article about Joseph Sonnier's murder. And he's like, holy smokes. Maybe he's confessing to me.
He probably didn't say holy smokes, but please press on.
So he calls the Lubbock PD, and then he gives them the smoking gun. And that is by telling, based on just a little questioning from the police, Dixon is tied to Shepard. Dixon, former lover of Rochelle, and to Shepard, the man who's claiming he may have killed the guy in Lubbock. And now it's time for a wine recess. Chris, since we are in October, we are not only drinking the best of the best Texas wine, we have had the winemakers themselves telling us about the wines we are drinking. So let's hear from Chris at Hill Country Wineworks.
I want to welcome winemaker and owner of Hill Country Wineworks, Chris Baber. Chris, thank you for being here with me today.
Yeah, Brandy, it's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I can't wait to learn more about Hill Country Wineworks, which you guys are located right there in Comfort, Texas, which is about 30 minutes south of Fredericksburg, just to kind of give our friends an idea of your location. So tell us, what inspired you to get into the wine business and open Hill Country Wineworks?
Yeah, that's a great question. It seems like after almost 2 decades of visiting wineries in the Hill Country, my wife would, her and I would come here and just spend a lot of time. The Hill Country's always been like one of our places to come. It's been I guess, our magical place. We ended up getting married in the Hill Country. And so after, a couple of decades of visiting wineries in the Hill Country and, dreaming of opening our own winery one day, we just decided to take the plunge. I mean, there's not a more romantic backstory than that, other than it was just a passion that we had for wine and for bringing kind of the spotlight onto wine here in the state of Texas. And we just decided to do it.
That's awesome. So are you guys from Texas?
I am originally from Texas, out in West Texas, in the Abilene area.
Okay.
My wife is actually from St. Louis.
Oh, okay. So a Texas. So did you meet in Texas?
We did. We actually met at work.
Oh,
I
love that.
Yeah.
Well, I always ask people this because sometimes when you own wine, you open a winery in Hill Country or near Hill Country, there's some sort of history of somebody growing up in Hill Country, right? But love that you grew up in West Texas. But West Texas, as we know, is where Texas wine originated. So just as big over there. So okay, tell me, we are drinking your 2019 Dolcetto. So if memory serves me right, this is the first Dolcetto on Texas Wine and True Crime, which we love. So tell us more about this blend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that it's the first Dolcetto on the show. And we actually get that quite a bit when guests come into our tasting room and they see this on the menu and they're like, I've never had a Dolcetto. It's always a bit surprising to me because I feel like I've had several, and maybe that's what ended up drawing me and drawing us to making this wine. But yeah, so this is our 2019 Texas High Plains Dolcetto, and the fruit that made up this wine came from a vineyard up there in the Brownfield area called Double Diamond Vineyard.
Okay.
It's a good medium body dry red wine. It's got some good acidity and tannins to it. It's one of those that what I would call a good game day wine. So it's
Okay.
it goes well with pizza and hamburgers and ribs and just anything that you're cooking up on a good day of football.
Well, I'm thinking it might be important to let our listeners know, do you have a wine club? Because as you know, the Cowboys are doing amazing right now. And I could use a lot of this on Sundays. So, do you have a wine club?
We do. We offer two different wine clubs. We've got a 4 and 6 bottle club. And because we're a smaller winery, we only ship twice per year. So you're going to get a
Okay.
shipment from us in the spring and the fall. And also, we're limiting the number of those that can join. So, again, just because we're a smaller winery. But I guess, one of the differences in our wine club that you don't see in a lot of wine clubs is that we allow our family to choose the wines that are in their shipment. Because,
Oh, love that.
yeah, I mean, we want people when the shipment shows up at their door, they come pick it up at the tasting room. We want them to get exactly the bottles that they want.
And you know what? It's so funny that you do that. I Now there might be other wineries that do that. I don't know of at the wine clubs that we have belonged to before. It's always a standard shipment, right? But I mean, we always have those bottles that we're like, you know what? We're just not big drinkers of this. Like, let's leave this here and wait till someone comes over, and then we'll share it with them. But I love the fact that you let them pick them out, because to me, that makes it even more exciting.
Right. Yeah. And that's, as we were, visiting wineries and having, experiences with wine clubs at different wineries, that's one of the things that we always wish that we could pick our own wines because I'm more of like a dry red kind of guy.
Yeah.
And my wife, likes a little bit of the sweeter wine. And so we would always just get like the dry red, and there was not anything in the shipment that she necessarily loved. And
Oh, yeah.
so we were like, just, you know, let our wine club members pick what they want.
That is so great. So, October is Texas Wine Month. I'm sure you guys have been really busy. So, any events coming up Halloween weekend?
Um, out in the Comfort area, and that's one thing that I would say, if you've never been out to Comfort, there's a lot to do out there. The community is really growing and has so much to offer. So especially around this time of the year and the Halloween weekend that's coming up, there's a lot of amazing shopping and eating. Um, in the Comfort area, there are now 5 different wineries.
Wow.
There's Yeah, so it's really growing out there. There's even a distillery, and so yeah, we're just encouraging people to come out and sit and relax and enjoy, some of our cozy spaces that we have at our tasting room.
So, tell us, when is your tasting room open? When are you guys open?
We're currently open only on Saturday and Sunday from noon to 7 p.m.
Okay, perfect. Just so we know, people always like to. Some people go to Fredericksburg and tour around, and then they'll listen to our show, and they'll go, "Oh, that's not that far. I'm going to go down and check it out." So always good to know when you guys are open for business. So, anything else you want to tell us about Hill Country Wine Works?
Um, you know, Again, one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on, and based on experiences that we had, was our tasting room is a combination of like Hill Country Modern and an 1800s cabin from West Virginia. And
Oh,
within
cool.
that, yeah, it's a really neat space. So what we're trying to do is we have a number of little cozy and relaxing spaces, where guests can come and hang out with their family and friends and enjoy a tasting, a glass or a bottle. And, we're just all about having people come out, stay a while, tell us your story, let us,
Yeah.
tell you ours.
Wine brings people together, right?
It absolutely does. And
Yeah.
that's, if you check out our website or even on the back of any of our labels on our wine, you'll see that kind of our motto is coming together over stories and wine.
Love that. Love your label. This bottle's name is Oliver, and we were talking about this before we started talking about Hill Country Wine Works. But you were telling me you give all of your wines a name.
Yeah, we do. It started with our sparkling wine, which is named after our daughter, Aspen, and just kind of the way that a sparkling wine makes you feel when you open it up or when you're taking a sip and you feel those those bubbles, just that happiness and excitement that it gives you, that's her personality. So we named the sparkling after her. And then all of the other names are just names that we feel like embody kind of the profile of the wine that's inside.
I love that. And I am drinking Oliver today. The 2019 Dolcetto's name is Oliver. So I love that so much. Chris, thank you so much for being here, folks. By the way, Chris, Chris Chris is Chris. I am married to a Chris
Right.
too. So we are going to be making our way up your direction in the spring. So be looking for us, and we're going to bring some friends with us. So we'll definitely, and I've never been to Comfort, Texas, and I love that you said there's so much to do and see. So we will be there. So folks, go see Chris and our friends at Hill Country Wineworks, or check out their website at hcwineworks.com. Chris, thanks for being here, and cheers.
Thank you, Brandy. Cheers to you too.
Police find David Shepard, and then he starts telling police everything he knows about Dixon. So here's the thing, Chris. I wanted to talk to you about this. This is something I need your advice on and your thoughts about this. So when I was watching the interrogation video of the police and Dave Shepard, they wanted to basically find out how him and Dixon are connected and what their relationship actually is. So when he's talking about Dixon, he's using words like connection. We would have a drink and smoke cigars, and we just connected. He connected to me. I find this kind of a strange terminology for a male talking about a male friend.
Yep.
It's a little odd. I was thinking about you. I'm not sure, maybe. Not that men don't say those things. I just don't think I would ever hear you use the word me and him connected. We had a connection. Is that weird for me? Am I being biased on men and how they speak about other men? I feel like there's a weird obsession to this. Maybe people just have to see the interrogation video, but he says things like, we were connected. We would smoke cigars, have martinis. We were both divorced. We have this connection. He just kept using that word connect. What does that tell you?
Sounds a little obsessive. I can't imagine another. I've never personally had a connection to another man, so I don't know. I mean, I certainly have things in common.
A good word. Okay.
A little different, but maybe he was a little obsessed.
So this guy was like a known con man, broke, unemployed.
Maybe he was enamored with the doctor.
Okay. And then this doctor is rich, well known,
Buying cigars and
well
drinks.
liked, buying cigars, probably the martinis too. He probably footed the bill. I'm feeling some obsession. I'm feeling a little bit of living vicariously through him a little bit, maybe wishing he was him a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm picking up on this conversation. Okay, so I then think, because of that, he was very vulnerable to the doctor. I feel like the doctor Dixon knew he was enamored with him, a little obsessed with him, and he was very vulnerable, and he controlled that mentality. I think he knew he would be able to get into his head, and he does. But Shepard tells police everything. I mean, he comes out and he sings like a bird. He tells authorities that Dixon wanted Rochelle back, and he wanted Sonnier out of the picture. He tells them it started innocently, with strange messages sent, but then became more serious when Dixon convinces Shepard to move to Lubbock and stalk the two of them. This is extreme. I mean, this guy literally stayed in Lubbock for months.
He's probably paying him.
He does. Yeah. And he is following these people. I mean, I always, and I say this and I'll say it again, stalking is scary enough. I mean, you might know them, you might not. They might see you. Most of the time, you're going to know the person who's stalking you. You're going to have met them in some capacity. But to be stalked by someone who's never, ever, ever spoken one word to you and you don't even know they exist in this world, that is some scary, scary shit. To be knowing that this guy moves an hour and a half, longer than that, right? No, it's a 3-hour drive.
From Amarillo?
Amarillo,
More or less.
Plainview is in the middle of Amarillo and Lubbock. And because they would make that drive, that he was seen on a couple of Plainview video cameras commuting back and forth. So, but they were, I mean, this is so crazy. I mean, it's hard for us to wrap around how crazy this actually is, but this is really just, this is absolutely crazy. So what they wanted to do was basically ruin the reputation of Dr. Joseph Sonnier. The plan was to send pornographic magazines or some sort of videotape to the office to ruin his reputation, to basically find girlfriends of his past and find out who they are and then send messages that they were from them. So they had all of these things lined up to ruin his reputation. They were hoping by doing that, then Rochelle would leave. And then Dixon could then come back and
swoop in.
But they start doing all of this stuff and none of it works. She's still there. Her and Dr. Joseph Sonnier realized that this is somebody or something or someone trying to break them up. I mean, they were they felt like something was not right. There were a lot of cues in here. I mean, we'll talk about this in a minute, but okay. So we find out Dr. Thomas Michael Dixon, the plastic surgeon from Amarillo, Texas, did hire Dave Shepard to stalk and eventually murder Dr. Sonnier. According to Shepard, Dixon wanted revenge for Rochelle abandoning him after Shepard claims Dixon ended his marriage in order to be with Rochelle. So Shepard tells the police this is why Dixon wanted revenge. He ended his marriage to be with her.
And then couldn't have her.
Well, not that. Well, and that's the thing. It's like he wouldn't commit. He says she left me because I couldn't commit, but I really loved her. Like I really wanted to be with her, but I had just got divorced. Like I left my wife for her. So that's exactly what Shepard's saying. And she ends up wanting that commitment. He hasn't given it. So she leaves. She leaves the relationship and then meets. Maybe he didn't think she was going to go out and meet another doctor. Maybe he didn't realize what he was up against once she met Sonnier and things were going well. I mean, we just don't know. Okay, so he gives a full confession, and guess what? Guess what he was actually paid for this hit? He was given a box of cigars and 3 silver bars, which in value sat at about $9,000.
Pretty good deal.
For a murder?
Well, for the Dixon, yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair.
No, Dixon. You mean Shepard? He murdered.
I mean, it's a good deal for the doctor to hire somebody for that low. I
Oh.
mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying. He took advantage of him.
Yes.
That vulnerability. The guy had no money, so that's one thing. His daughters were. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. His daughters said, and this is actually ends up being the smoking gun in the retrial. His daughter, he never had any money, and then one night he took them out for steaks. And then he had a new cell phone. And they were like, Dad, how did you get this money? So I'll tell you what he actually tells them in a bit. But yeah, so that's all it takes for now. I do believe there was some other cash probably being funneled, possibly to stay in Lubbock.
yes,
or
his living expenses and probably whatnot.
Yeah. So
Camera
I
with the
imagine.
flash.
Yeah. That it's just so weird. Ugh, it's just creepy. It's just so weird that he actually did that. Okay, so prosecutors decide to offer Shepard a plea bargain. If he takes a stand against Dixon, they will take the death penalty off the table and offer him life in prison. He agrees. He pleads no contest in the death of Joseph Sonnier and receives a life sentence. So for those that not sure what no contest means, it's when a defendant accepts the conviction given to them which is life in prison in this case, but does not admit guilt in the case. Like, I accept that you're giving me life in prison, but I don't actually have to say that I actually did the crime, which is so shitty.
Especially for the family.
It is. It is. Just so shitty. Since Shepard blows the whistle on Dixon's plan, evidence in the case begins to appear, including the murder weapon at the bottom of a lake. It's found at the bottom of a lake just behind Mike Dixon's medical office. So they find it. Once they realize they're connected, they start looking for things, and one of those things is searching that body of water. They also have video footage the day after the murder of the two hanging out shopping, smoking cigars, like not a care in the world. After the police go to Dixon's office for that original conversation that was recorded, remember it was secretly recorded, Shepard tells police he was so nervous he tried to slit his wrists. So Dixon tells him, they've come to me, they've talked to me, I didn't say anything about you. Shepard freaks out and slits his wrists. He is unsuccessful, but calls Dixon to tell him what he had just done. And police confirm this story because they pull video surveillance from the doctor's office that Dixon took him to get stitches in his wrists. I mean, it's crazy.
Pretty crazy.
It's like this weird codependent weirdness. I don't know. Okay, but Chris, the trial comes. Shepard gets on the stand, and he does exactly the opposite. Shepard gets on the stand and changes his story. He now claims that Dixon was not involved in the murder at all and that he acted alone. The defense argued that Dixon only asked Shepard to take photographs of Sonnier out with other women with the intent to show his ex-girlfriend, Rochelle Shatina, but he never wanted Sonnier dead. They also said the silver bars Dixon gave to Shepard was part of a business investment for a company they were starting together. So
he probably struck a deal with him, I would imagine.
Well, no, well, okay, so he got the no contest.
No, I mean Dixon and Shepard probably struck a deal.
Oh, well, he didn't want to rat him out. Like, he's already spending life in prison, right? He's already in prison. He's already pleaded no contest. I think it was just almost like a good faith thing to help his friend. That's what his family thinks. There was no other reason to do it than just to be nice. There's nothing in it for him or against him. He was already in prison for life.
Well, I know, but I mean, like I said, kind of a money deal. Sending money every month, so he has money while he's locked up, and who knows?
Oh, interesting.
Take care of his family. I mean, there's all kinds of people.
Interesting.
I mean, if he was already a hardened criminal before all this, and he figured he was already going to do the time, then why not finagle your time to be a little more
fruitful,
palatable?
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't even think about it. And you're right. They probably had that conversation, especially when police went to him immediately after he was killed. I mean, they went immediately and talked to the doctor and recorded the conversation secretly. So maybe they knew then it was something to talk about. That's interesting. Okay, so based on all of this information, unfortunately, the trial ends in a hung jury and the judge declares a mistrial. Almost 1 year to the day later, testimony then begins in Dixon's retrial for murder. The prosecution does not put David Shepard on the stand this time, but rather Paul Reynolds. So Paul Reynolds is the one that was living with Shepard at the time, who went to the police, told them what he knew, and he recounts his story, and his story never deviates or changes. The other person they put on the stand, and probably the most powerful to actually prosecute Dave Shepard, was his own daughter, Haley Shepard. And so here's what's interesting. She says that her dad takes her and a couple of her sisters out to dinner, and he has a new cell phone. And she says, my dad never had any money. My dad never gave us any money. He never took us out to steak dinners. We never had that luxury. And then she says, Dad, how do you have this money when they're out to dinner? And he says, quote, I did some work for Mike. He paid me early. Don't ask me what I did. So she testifies this in court at Dixon's retrial. So in October 2015, that is when the actual retrial began. In November 2015, the jury takes just 3 hours to find Dixon guilty on 2 counts of capital murder and is sentenced to life in prison without parole. 3 years later, his defense team got his conviction overturned. So this wasn't until December 2018, the 7th District Court of Appeals in Amarillo reversed Dixon's conviction and grants him a new trial after reviewing his appeal. So in January of 2019, they set a bail at $2 million, and he pays it on January 28th, 2019. He is released from prison on a $2 million bond. Well, he didn't pay it, but
probably know who paid it.
$2 million bond. Well, this is Dixon. Dixon is released, right? So the doctor is released on a $2 million bond. February 2019, prosecutors file a petition to have Dixon's conviction reinstated. So it's interesting because basically he had bond, paid bond, was able to get out. And the reason for these appeals was because of the way the cell phone data was extracted from his phone and Shepard's phone. They had all these text messages of them going back and forth talking about like, today's the day, or go get him, or weird little sayings that Dixon was saying to Shepard, and they do believe that was like cue to go and take care of Sonnier. But in April of 2020, he is officially back in prison while his case moves through the appellate process. So he was out. He was out for a little bit, but then they said, nope, you got to come back while your stuff goes through the appeals. Well, the Texas Court of Appeals denies Dixon a new trial, but his attorneys aren't giving up. Their initial reasoning, since this was the cell phone data and there was a court case that went through the U.S. Supreme Court with how you access cell phone data, what kind of search warrants you need. They do believe if the U.S. Supreme Court gets a hold of this case, then Dixon might get a retrial, or at least a second look at his conviction. But as of right now, Dixon is right where he belongs. All right, Chris, that concludes episode 50, Obsession and Murder. If you want to see pictures related to this case, you can find them on our Instagram and Facebook pages, and also on our website, texaswineandtruecrime.com. All right, well, you heard from our friend Chris today from Hill Country Wineworks. Chris, I know we can't wait to come and visit. So, friends, please stop by Hill Country Wineworks in Comfort, Texas, or check them out at hcwineworks.com. All right, babe, this was pretty good wine. It's been a really, really, really great 50 episodes.
It has been fantastic wine all year long.
Wine all year long, still coming in, still so much to try. Okay, so let's do our last organization of the month.
Okay.
I want to do that. Okay, so each week we highlight an organization that just inspires us to be givers and better people in general. So to close out the month of October, I chose an organization out of Lubbock called Wrench It Forward. Okay, by the way, love that name. Wrench It Forward is a 501c3 nonprofit aimed to move people out of poverty and homelessness by providing low-cost car repairs for households with limited means. This is really cool. So they actually originated June of 2018. They've done over 100 repairs. Actually, that was 2018 to 2019, so they've done probably over 100 now. But a year after they opened, they had already done 100 repairs and saved people about $21,000, which is nice.
Very cool.
So very cool. They knew that there was a pressing need for low-cost auto repair in Lubbock for people and families that were in need. So basically, they know people need to go get groceries. They got to take their kids to school. They need to pick them up from school. They need to
go to work.
Go to work. I mean, the necessities. So they really just embrace this idea to help families that need repair. I mean, you and I just had some cars repaired, and thankfully we had a spare car to use, but imagine if we didn't. I mean, how hard that would be, and imagine if we couldn't even pay for it. I mean, so I can't imagine what car, expenses and things that just happen. It just happens, and then you have to be able to come up with the money for it. So I know that can be difficult for families at times. So Wrench It Forward is proud to serve the South Plains community by just offering that low cost auto repair and just trustworthy transportation for all households. There's so many ways you can donate. You can also donate a car. So please check out our friends at wrenchitforwardlbk.org. That's wrenchitforwardlbk for Lubbock.org. All right, babe. Congrats on number 50.
Absolutely.
Cheers to 50 more.
Cheers to 50 more.
Until next time, friends, stay safe, have fun, and cheers to next time.
Cheers.